Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am a logical leftist, and we have got I've got a great show for y'all today. So, of course, we're going to talk about the Orange Monday that happened yesterday. We've got billionaires versus Donald Trump. What is going on here? We have that. We've got the anti-immigrant tip line that is getting trolled. That's always fun. Amy Coney Barrett versus MAGA once again. Yes, Redux. And then, of course, we have Donald Trump's new military budget. Not good. We're going to get into the details of that. So, um, with that said, I mean, look, you can support the show. You can become a member, or you can become a patron, or you can do both. I guess if you really wanted to, I'd appreciate it. Just stick within your means, of course, as always. Um, with that said, let's dive in. I'm just getting right to it today. Start out with the Orange Monday. On Monday, the stock market opened up with another Trump-inspired wipeout. The S&P 500 briefly entered the bear market territory as it fell 20% from its most recent high. The Nasdaq and the Dow Jones Industrial Average opened down 4.5% and 3.78% respectively. Now, there was a bit of a short upswing based on some fake news, okay, that Trump was going to pause the tariffs for like 90 days. Of course, Trump, the White House came out and said, actually, no, that's not happening. And of course, the stocks cratered once again. Oops. Especially since Trump threatened even more tariffs against China for doing retaliation. So, for putting in their own retaliatory tariffs. Now, while the markets slightly recovered from their early Monday plunge, the S&P 500 is down 12% from a month ago, while the Nasdaq is down 14% and the Dow Jones down 11%. A lot of people are calling this Orange Monday, okay? Because look, Black Monday, not really, because we got rid of DEI. So it's Orange Monday, completely and utterly self-inflicted disaster. And there are some memes here, just a couple of them. There you go. That picture of JD Vance with a giant head and curly locks. Gotta apply that Cheeto dust evenly for a nice Cheeto-y orange shine or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with that. But there's another one. It can't be Black Monday because Trump banned DEI, so it must be an Orange Monday instead. That's right. Ouch. Ouch. And there's more posts, of course. One person says, at least we now have a name for this market crash. This Monday, orange is the new black. When Donald Trump intentionally crashes the stock market, you don't call it Black Monday, you call it Orange Monday. So, now, that said, this stock market wipeout is pissing off his billionaire friends. Okay? You know why? Because they're losing money. Ken Langone, for example, a Trump mega donor, called the tariffs BS. Jamie Dimon warned of inflation and recession. In fact, he said, the recent tariffs will likely increase inflation and are causing many to consider a greater probability of a recession. And even with the recent decline in market values, prices remain relatively high. Yes, there has been no, reduction in grocery prices. Okay, none. Now, look, here's the thing. I'm not against tariffs in principle, as long as they're smart, targeted, and have a clear goal in mind. Donald Trump's tariffs do not fit that criteria. There is no goal in mind. In fact, the goals seem to conflict. First, Trump said the tariffs were designed to bring back American manufacturing and to restore long-lost working-class jobs, the ones that were outsourced thanks to Bill Clinton, NAFTA, CAFTA, all these trade deals, right? Here's the thing. Biden actually tried to do that. He actually used tariffs and policy through the Inflation Reduction Act the Chips and Science Act to incentivize building microchips, EVs, batteries, and other clean energy related things. There's a lot of subsidies involved here. Now, on the tariff side, Biden imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese made electric cars. Okay. So, look, the reason that he had to do all that stuff is because on clean energy, China is eating our lunch. They've invested so much into their clean energy that they have left us in the dust. And part of that reason is because we did not invest in it. And the reason we didn't invest in it is because you have Republicans that would rather roll coal. Okay. So that's really it. They protect the coal industry, the oil industry, because that's who funds them. Yes, I know. Money in politics. What are you going to do? So now, Biden's tariffs in that regard, in that context, yeah, they do make sense. Trump's don't. I mean, they put tariffs on an island with no inhabitants, too, actually. Okay, so it didn't make any sense. Now, the second reason, okay, is or the second thing that didn't make sense, the second goal, is the tariffs are meant to raise massive amounts of revenue to replace the progressive income tax. Okay, but does that make sense? Is the math? No, it does not. The IRS in 2024 collected $2.96 trillion in taxes from individuals and corporations. The total cost of imports of foreign goods actually equaled about $3.3 trillion. Interesting. Now, that means that a 100% tariff on all imported goods might actually make up the entirety of individual and corporate income tax revenue. But there's always a but, and it's a big one. A 100% tariff on everything imported? Well, I mean, you wouldn't buy anything then. And there are a lot of things that are imported that you can't make here or can't grow here. So who's going to buy that? And if nobody buys these goods that are marked up with these tariffs, then where's the money going to come from? No revenue for the government. Oops. I'm starting to think that they didn't really, consider all these things.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, exactly. Whoopsie. Now, finally, Trump's advisors claim that the purpose of the tariffs is actually to put pressure on foreign countries so that they would cut better trade deals with the United States. Now, look, two of the goals are not bad. I do want to see more blue-collar jobs where you can actually live off of good, high-paying union jobs. That would be great. Of course, Trump not in favor of unions. Let's be very clear. And look, I also like good trade deals that do not disadvantage American workers. So that's where I like, okay, I get some of these goals and I get why some people would be in favor of this. For example, Sean Fain over at the UAW, right? He's in favor of these auto tariffs. And again, I disagree with him on that, but I understand where he's coming from. And if they were better targeted and smarter, then that would be just fine. But they're not. They're not. And so, look, when you put all this together, all of these goals, you can't have them all. Okay? It's totally incoherent trade policy. To make things worse, by the way, the administration continues to flip-flop between one rationale to another. For example, on Monday morning, the Financial Times had an op-ed from White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, where he declared, "This is not a negotiation." Hours later, they posted that Trump posted, "Countries from all over the world are talking to us. Spoke to Japanese Prime Minister this morning. He is sending a top team to negotiate." Wait, I thought we don't negotiate. I thought this was not a negotiation. What's going on? By the way, if you do negotiate, in the words of Scott Bessent, it would essentially eliminate the need for our tariffs at all. He says, get rid of yours and we'll get rid of ours. Drop your tariffs to zero and we'll drop our tariffs to zero. Well, then wouldn't that undermine the first two reasons for those tariffs? To protect our manufacturing and to raise revenue? All of this is why the market is reacting so poorly. There is no plan here. It doesn't make any sense. It's all based on feels. Donald Trump's mad at China, so tariffs. He's mad at Mexico, tariffs. Mad at Canada, tariffs. I don't know why he's mad at the penguins on McDonald Island. I don't know. But I'm sure he'll come up with a reason. It is stupid, self-destructive, and completely on brand, all of this, for the man-baby in chief. How could people not catch the Ron Vera? Yeah, that was, I was going to mention something about that, how ridiculous that was. Didn't get a chance. All right, let's move on. Cost of everything is going to skyrocket. So much for the price of eggs. They're going to look cheap by comparison. Maybe that's his plan. Like I said, there is no real plan here. This guy's operating on just vibes and feels, and I don't know. There's nobody here to stop me from doing the things that I instantly think of. The Penguins phone imported suits. Does he make suits? All right, let's go to some more responses here. All right. President Donald Trump is getting blasted by some of his billionaire donors over these disastrous tariffs. In an interview on Monday with the Financial Times, Home Depot co-founder and GOP mega donor Ken Langone called out the president's tariffs as BS and claimed that Trump is being poorly advised on that issue. What, by like Peter Navarro or Ron Vara or whatever he wants to call himself? Just this made-up expert? I don't know. Probably. Langone said that Trump's 34% tariffs on China were quote-unquote too aggressive, too soon, and prevents serious negotiations to work. He added 46% on Vietnam. Come on! You might as well tell them, don't even bother calling. Langone also criticized Trump's sketchy tariff math, which basically is just them dividing the trade deficit that the U.S. has with a country by the value of the imports from said country. Langone said, quote, I don't understand the goddamn formula. I believe he's been poorly advised by his advisors about this trade situation and the formula that they're applying. Yeah. The formula for the tariffs, by the way, is getting mocked by the right-wing American Enterprise Institute. They put out a paper saying, this makes no sense. Quote, the formula, they write, and originally credited to the Council of Economic Advisors and published by the Office of the United States Trade Representative, does not make economic sense. The trade deficit with a given country is not determined only by tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers, but also by international capital flows, supply chains, comparative advantage, geography, etc. Our view is that the formula the administration relied on has no foundation in either economic theory or trade law. Ouch. Even the economics professor whose paper the trade policy on trade policy Trump had cited he was not impressed. Okay, my first question, said University of Chicago professor Brett Neiman, when the White House unveiled its tariff regime, how on earth did they calculate such huge rates? The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative released its methodology and cited an academic paper produced by 4 economists, including me, seemingly in support of their numbers, but they got it wrong. Very wrong. Now, Langone is not the only billionaire. There are others, Stanley Druckenmiller and Bill Ackman. They have both criticized the move. Druckenmiller, who Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has described as a mentor, said, quote, I do not support tariffs exceeding 10%. Even First Buddy Elon Musk is not happy with the tariffs. He personally appealed to Trump, sources told the Washington Post, but apparently that has not been successful. Sad. Look, I'm not surprised billionaires are less than thrilled. Look at the markets; they're not doing well. Okay, it's a disaster. I have a bit of Schadenfreude about that. I don't mind when billionaires lose money. It doesn't make me sad. Okay, that said, right now it is funny that when the markets go up, average people do not benefit from it. But when the markets go down, average people are hurt. So that's the problem that we have in this country, is that it's usually, look, it's socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for everyone else. When the rich do better, just the rich do better. But when the rich do worse, somehow we all do worse. It's awful how it works. And that's why our economic system absolutely needs to change. So right now, as a result of this, people with 401ks are getting slammed. Okay, they're losing the money, and so are the farmers. In fact, as one farmer put it, if we don't get a government bailout, we're going to face a disaster. Another said that farmers are shocked. Meanwhile, nearly a third of Republicans fear that Trump tariffs will have a negative impact, and fewer than half say Trump's policies are making them better off. So people are feeling it. We're feeling worse off. It's because we are, and Trump is to blame. Now, of course, when Donald Trump is blamed, he's going to go and do what he always does. He's going to respond by calling his detractors names. Here's what he wrote over on his platform, Truth Social.
Truth Central.
The United States has a chance to do something that should have been done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panican. A new party based on weak and stupid people. Okay. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. Panican. Okay. So if you don't, if you're getting screwed by Trump's tariff policy and you don't like it, you are a panican. Okay. But hold on here. Trump said he was going to improve the economy on day one. That inflation would go down, the grocery prices would go down, gas prices, everything would be amazing and awesome and great and tremendous. But it's not. It's just not. And now he's saying, well, don't worry. Things will be great later. Just stick with me, okay, as I wreck the economy, as I destroy everything. Look, I think this was a bait and switch here for MAGA voters, and yet there's, of course, they're sticking with him. However, the ones that are not in the cult but still supported him, like the billionaires that supported him so they could get massive tax cuts, okay, because they're still pushing that massive tax cut bill, and of course they want deregulation. Well, they're still pissed because these tariffs are hurting them too, which is why even some Republicans in office are starting to push back on these tariffs, but only a few of them, and only on this. So it's an absolute mess. And if Donald Trump continues with this reckless trade policy, we could see a uniting of farmers, working class people, and billionaires against him, which is something that I thought I'd never see. It is bizarre. They're going to pass another tax cut. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're just going to push that thing right through. You probably thought those Penguin Islands were populated with panicans. There you go. When you've lost the American Enterprise Institute, you've lost the plot. There you go. Great comments. All right. So moving on here. An ICE tip line was trolled by people reporting Tesla CEO Elon Musk. On Sunday, the White House X account promoted the new 24-hour tip line for immigration and customs enforcement. And almost immediately, the responses were overwhelmed with calls for the removal of the first buddy. Hi, one user replied above an image of Musk. I have an illegal immigrant I would like to report. Now, hold on. Is Elon Musk an illegal immigrant? Well, not currently, but he did work illegally in the U.S. for a brief period of time back in 1995. This is according to a report from the Washington Post. And of course, Elon Musk now is like, oh, no, that's not true. Didn't actually happen yet. Now, another person, by the way, in the Trump orbit who worked illegally in the United States was Melania Trump, who was paid for 10 modeling assignments between September 10th and October 15th in 1996, during a time when her visa allowed her to be in the U.S. and look for work, but not to perform paid work in the country. To which I say,
whoopsie.
Weird. Now, in addition to the tip line, the White House also shared a link to an online forum operated by ICE where undocumented immigrants could be reported, to which one user had said, absolutely do not under any circumstances flood this line with prank calls. That would be horrible. Yes.
Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that. I tell you, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It would be such a waste of resources to tie up this line with prank calls or the B movie or something. Yes, it would be such a terrible thing. Over on BlueSky, users did urge people flood them lines. Yes, it would be quite horrible. Wow, what a terrible thing. Response to that, by the way, a couple of them. Neverpilled writes, have you checked out this guy, Elon? Another says, Elon Musk and his brother admitted committing visa fraud to enter the country illegally by law. Their citizenship should be revoked. They should be deported and not allowed to reapply for citizenship. That goes for the rest of the relatives, too. Another says, I heard about an island where this dude was pimping out underage girls to really high-profile individuals. No one has been arrested. Perhaps you will also look into that. And then, you see this one. Is there a helpline for this? Look, I love that the internet knows exactly what to do in these situations. Okay? This is like what happened in January when people spanned another ridiculous tip line set up by the Trump administration. This time, it was like, that time, they wanted federal employees to report references to DEI. Yeah, as if that is the major problem. I tell you what, with everything that's going on, we could use a little bit more DEI, because getting rid of it has been a bit of a disaster for this country. I'm just saying. Didn't turn out so well. But look, these people, I don't know, they really seem to believe that America is just chock full of people who want to snitch on their neighbors. Yeah, that's what this is. This is a snitch line. Okay. And you know what they say about snitches? Regardless, by the way, here's the thing. I'm sure that some of them will use this snitch line. I mean, nothing gets MAGA off more than reporting brown people to the authorities, okay? Whether or not they're actually undocumented. On that, they don't care. And again, if you are brown, they will absolutely try to get you deported. Because, well, I mean, look.
The Republican Party's racist.
It's real simple. Okay? I mean, how many stories out there exist of Trump voters either being arrested by ICE or having members of their family get arrested by ICE? I mean, I remember reporting about a guy whose, wife was nabbed after they got back from a honeymoon or whatever in Puerto Rico. Okay? She got nabbed because she's a Peruvian citizen. And yes, her visa had run out during COVID or something. Apparently, she is now out on bond, and he is still a hardcore MAGA fan, even though she had to spend time in prison. So, for being here, undocumented. Look, this is who they are. And I think the administration knows that, and maybe is hoping that, man, if enough of these volunteer brown shirts go out there and start reporting immigrants, I mean, that makes our job a little bit easier. Especially since they're under a lot of pressure to hit some very unrealistic deportation numbers. Look, border crossings are way down. They have been on the decline for quite some time, and they just cannot find enough undocumented immigrants to deport. To which I say, oh, sad baby. Bashy has a sad. You missed the Heritage Foundation guy on Bloomberg complaining of their losses due to tariffs. Project 2025 guys are already regretful. To which, again, I say, Bashy has a sad. I'd like to report a person that goes by the name Ron Vera, and he looks like Peter Navarro. Known to be dangerous, approach with caution. There you go. If that woman stays with that guy after all that crap she was forced to endure, wow, it takes all kinds, truly. Yeah. No kidding. All right. Moving on here. Never thought I would see Amy Coney Barrett, make some, again, she's made a lot of terrible rulings, but also made a few good ones. Interesting. The right wing is melting down at Justice Amy Coney Barrett for siding with the court's liberal minority against President Donald Trump. The Supreme Court on Monday handed Trump a pretty big legal victory over Trump's deportation of Venezuelan nationals allegedly linked to the Tren de Aragua gang. You know how they made that connection through some tattoos? Ooh, wow. Oh, man. Now, the decision was 5-4 in allowing deportation flights to continue under the Alien Enemies Act. However, the ruling also stated that migrants must be afforded due process. I know that there's an argument, like the MAGA chuds are all like, aliens, they don't have due process. Then how do you know that they're aliens if they're not allowed to prove it? Okay, they actually have to prove that they're here either illegally or legally. Okay, so that's what due process is. Due process, especially if you pick up an American citizen, due process is where they say, no, I'm an American citizen. Here's my paperwork. Here is my ID. Okay, I am here legally. So that's why due process is super, super important. But, MAGA, not in favor of that. Okay. Now, I thought the whole point, though, was to try to deport dangerous gang members. But again, they are deporting people with soccer tattoos. They're deporting hairdressers, people with no criminal records. In fact, a number of people that were sent to the infamous terrorism prison in El Salvador, that it's about 75% of them, no criminal record whatsoever. Yeah. So now, the Supreme Court's decision was cheered on as a landmark victory for the rule of law by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Here's where she posted. An activist judge in Washington, D.C. does not have the jurisdiction to seize control of President Trump's authority to conduct foreign policy and keep the American people safe. Yes, safe from people what? With tattoos? Okay. The Department of Justice will continue fighting in court to make America safe again. Another huge win, Representative Andy Biggs wrote in his own post on X. Woke activist judges have no history, have no business blocking the president from exercising his constitutional authority. It is the woke, everybody.
The wokers.
Yeah, it's the wokers. It's the wokers. Everything is woke. Everything bad is woke. Okay, that's what they're doing now. More stuff. Representative Tom Tiffany of Wisconsin posted, major victory. SCOTUS ruled in favor of President Trump will allow deportation under the Alien Enemies Act to continue. Judge Boasberg ignored precedent and must be held accountable. Now, let's get these criminal illegal aliens out of our country. But you can't prove that they don't have any criminal history. Former Fox News and NBC News host Megyn Kelly told her followers that she was still reading through the ruling, but added, by Judge Boasberg, SCOTUS just handed Boasberg his ass on a platter, said MAGA influencer Gunther Eagleman. Gunther Eagleman. That does not sound like a real person. That sounds like a caricature. They ruled against him and granted Trump the power to use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The lawfare is crumbling. This is huge. Deport them all. Expel the invaders. Once again,
The Republican Party's racist.
now, aside from the celebration, of course, MAGA is still targeting Amy Coney Barrett for voting out of lockstep. In fact, here is Ian Yeager writing, Justice Amy Coney Barrett once again sides with the liberal justices that President Trump cannot invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. She cannot be trusted. Oh. Pro-MAGA attorney Mike Davis writes, Judge Boasberg unlawfully and dangerously took the federal judiciary to the brink. 5 justices stopped him. Professor Amy Coney Barrett joined the 3 liberals. What a disaster. Total lack of sound judgment. Joey Manorino writes, Trump is allowed to deport any illegal he wants. It's called common sense. Amy Coney Barrett is a piece of absolute shit. Wow. Cat Turd, that's right, Cat Turd, said, huge Amy Coney Barrett is a joke. Amy Coney Barrett is a joke and a loser. And these Karens, and he talks about that in basically about the 3 liberal justices, or women. These Karens are hell-bent on destroying the judiciary. Imagine losing our country, freedom, and the rule of law over these 4 utter clowns. There's so much projection here. So much projection. All right. Nick Sator reacted to the Monday night ruling by calling Barrett a, quote, Mitch McConnell plant, who, of course, voted with the liberals to block President Trump from deporting the violent trend to Arugua gang members. But again, they're not. Many of the 238 migrants that were sent to the Salvadoran mega prison had no criminal records. They couldn't find anything. One of the men, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was here legally, living and working in Maryland, still got picked up by ICE and sent over to this torture camp, this torture prison. A judge ordered that he be brought back. But no, the administration is just ignoring them. So, talk about rule of law all the time over on the right, and they don't follow it whatsoever. Justice Sotomayor had written in her dissent of this, quote, government's conduct in this litigation poses an extraordinary threat to the rule of law. Ketanji Brown Jackson slammed the majority's fly-by-night approach and rushed conclusion, arguing that the temporary restraining order would have prevented immediate harm to the targeted individuals, while the court considered the lawfulness of the government's conduct. Now, that's what's important about this, right? And that's why it's kind of ridiculous that MAGA is celebrating because they didn't take up the argument about the usage of the law. They weren't arguing on the merits of this law at all. Instead, the majority ruled that the challenger's lawsuit has to be brought somewhere else, to Texas, where they're being held, rather than in D.C. Kavanaugh had written a brief concurring opinion in which he emphasized that the court's disagreement is not over whether the detainees receive judicial review of their transfers. All 9 members of the court agreed that judicial review is available. The only question is where that judicial review should occur. So now, moving it to Texas, that's probably not good for these people that are filing that lawsuit. So let's keep it real. The district courts in Texas, not good. Not good at all. But nonetheless, currently, they weren't even arguing about the merits on this. Okay? So I think that MAGA might be celebrating a little too prematurely, while at the same time attacking Coney Barrett for upholding Boasberg's temporary order, while they figure out if Donald Trump can actually use that Alien Enemies Act when we're not actually at war and not actually being invaded. Okay? Because what war? What war? Unless Donald Trump's going to try to start one, which wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, seems like he's doing everything he can rhetorically to try to piss people off, to piss off the rest of the world. Okay? But currently, not at war, not dealing with an invasion. Where is your ability to use this act? Okay? Doesn't matter for them. Doesn't matter. As usual, though, it shows you that if you deviate from Donald Trump by just even a little bit, then his fans, his cult members, are more than happy to come for you. All right. That's why the Niemöller poem starts out, first they came for the trade unionists. They will work their way up the food chain. Yes, they absolutely are doing that. ISIS even in Puerto Rico nabbing Dominicans and Haitians. The pro-statehood governor of Puerto Rico is a suck-up to Trump, yet he will never notice her. Yeah, V-Man 29397, thank you very much for that very kind super chat, and a very good point. That is true. All right, last story here. This hour went really quick, or well, less than an hour to be fair. All right. On Monday, President Donald Trump announced that he will be supporting a $1 trillion military budget.
We rebuilt the military during my first term, and we have great things happening with our military. We also essentially approved a budget which is in the facility, you'll like to hear this, of $1 trillion, $1 trillion, and nobody's seen anything like it. We have to build our military, and we're very cost conscious, but the military is something that we have to build, and we have to be strong because you got a lot of bad forces out there now. So we're going to be approving a budget, and I'm proud to say, actually, the biggest one we've ever done for the military. We're cutting other things that were under Doge, but under a lot of other.
Okay, so Trump allegedly rebuilt the military during his first term, which he didn't, but apparently now he has to rebuild it again by giving them even more money, despite the fact that since he stopped being president, okay, in 2020, the military budget has continued to get larger, okay? But now he's like, we gotta have $1 trillion now. And this is despite the fact that Doge is allegedly trying to cut spending. Did I not say before that Doge and Trump would never touch the military? Of course they wouldn't. Look, the Pentagon last year requested a budget of $850 billion while failing to pass an annual audit of its spending for the 7th time in a row. Where is all that money going? We don't know. They can't do an audit. They can't pass one. But I do know that some of it is going right into Elon Musk's pocket. Remember, Elon has billions of dollars in government contracts. For one, SpaceX provides launch services to the DoD, including the launch of classified satellites and other payloads. SpaceX's CEO Gwynne Shotwell said the company has about $22 billion in government contracts. The vast majority, about $15 billion, is actually derived from NASA. SpaceX's biggest Pentagon contracts include the $733 million National Security Space Launch contract awarded in October to lift satellites into orbit. Starlink is also another contract. They've been used by the Pentagon to provide connectivity in remote environments. In 2023, the Pentagon awarded SpaceX a contract worth $23 million to use Starlink to support military operations in Ukraine through mid-2024. And now Elon is getting even more contracts. That's right. Space Systems Command recently announced the award of 3 national security space launch contracts to SpaceX, United Launch Services, and Blue Origin to provide vital launch services in support of U.S. national security missions. The projected contract values are approximately $5.92 billion for SpaceX, $5.37 billion for United Launch Services, and $2.39 billion for Blue Origin. None of those are going to be touched at all by Doge, especially the Musk money. Okay, so yeah, he's going to ask for $1 trillion. Where do you think the majority of that money is going to go? I think it's pretty obvious. But now the other thing that is, about this new budget, right? It's the fact that we're not at war. So since we're not at war, why the hell do we need to increase our military budget by, $150 billion? Why? It's insane. Well, this is where I get worried. Because turns out Donald Trump might be getting ready to attack Iran. Uh-oh. So now, it's not in stone, okay? But according to some reports here, one of them from Ken Klippenstein, apparently the Pentagon has sent 6 B-2 Spirit bombers to the Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, which is the largest. These 6 bombers is the single largest deployment of stealth bombers in U.S. history. Yeah. These long-range bombers are uniquely suited to evade Iranian air defenses and can carry America's most potent bunker-busting bombs. They flew in from Missouri last week in a little-noticed operation. In fact, Pentagon hasn't even announced any of this stuff. Okay? The B-2s carry not just bombs, but a message for Iran, said one retired general talking to Newsmax. That message being, do you see our sword? Oh boy. Look, Trump has also announced that if Tehran does not close the door on nuclear capability, they will experience, quote, bombing the likes of which they have never seen. Hell will rain down on the country. So, war with Iran, bigger military budget, the moving of assets, and of course, crazy people that are running the country and running the military, people like Pete Hegseth. Okay, that is not good. This is not good at all. And I am very concerned that we are going to end up in a disastrous war with Iran. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope I'm wrong. Now, Trump, of course, will make the argument, oh, see, I'm just trying to scare them into making a deal. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm just scaring them, you see, so they can come to the negotiating table. Okay, Here's the thing. And by the way, on Monday, he said doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious, which, of course, would be a military strike. Thing is, though, why would Iran want to do a deal with the guy who ripped up the last deal? Doesn't make any sense. So I am very, very concerned that Donald Trump may be sending us, or at least getting ready to send us, into a disastrous conflict with Iran. And as such, is trying to juice up our military funding to do it. I hope I am wrong. I hope I'm making too much out of this. But with Donald Trump at the helm, you just never know. Okay. Very scary times. He is ruining our country. Couldn't agree more. And it's not just him, it is all of his sycophants and his cult followers. So, yeah, there's a lot of ruination going on in this country. I'm waiting for him to go Moonraker on us. Ooh, with the lasers and all that. Yay. No, that wouldn't be a good thing either. Funny how all the places that need negotiating with are along trade routes. Greenland, Panama, Southeast Asian countries. That is interesting. That is very interesting. All right. So, let's see. Appeal to common sense is a logical fallacy. Yeah, we do not do that here. Common sense. Let's just say that. Okay. Only thing MAGA stands for is Make America White Again. Also true.
The Republican Party's racist.
Get a lot of mileage out of that clip. A lot of mileage. I had an off theory yesterday that it's mostly a what if scenario. What if this is hell and we're being tortured by each other? Oh boy. Are you saying that we are in the bad place? Or that we could be in the bad place? Yes, that is exactly what you're saying. Yikes. Yeah, we all died in 2016 or something, or 2012 from the meteor or something. Or whatever that Mayan calendar thing is. Yes, it must have been. And we're all in hell. No. I don't think so. I just think that right now, our country is in such a disastrous spot with all the anti-intellectualism that has gone on, the attacks on institutions, all of that has created, and the corruption, of course, the money in politics, all of that has just created this perfect storm to create someone like Donald Trump. And, you've got conservative media and their dominance of the billionaires controlling the messages. That's why you have so many people that buy into this. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all today. So thank you for watching the show. Really, really appreciate it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. If you're here late, you can go and watch the rest of it. You can sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/jeffwaldorf, and be able to download and listen to the show as a podcast wherever you'd like. So that's fun. That's one of the things that you can do. You watch the video clips, of course, as well. Or if you just, want to support the show, that's a way that you can do it as well. Another way that you can do it is to become a channel member on YouTube. All right. With that said, thank you all. Love you. And take care of yourselves, your families, and your communities, friends. And we'll see you back here, hopefully, tomorrow.